Yeah, I just started the YouTube stream,
You
and
probably
I'm
want to
going
get rid of
to
the
start
share, the screen
the
share.
Craig. Bloop. There's the Craig.
Now recording.
Welcome to the YangGang Roundtable. It is 3:24 p.m. Friday, January 8th, 2021. I have Ariel, Fedoni, Faku, Kaizen, our guest Leslie, Mia, Moto, and myself here. We're all basic income advocates living in a crazy time in a crazy country. And we're here to have a chat. So, thank you for being our guest today. Leslie, could you, please introduce yourself to us?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm Leslie. I'm a licensed counselor. I've been a counselor since, it feels like since the dawn of time. And I have been part of, I got excited about Andrew just in the nick of time to get really into it before he suspended. And then I sort of rolled over, instead of canvassing in South Carolina, I rolled over into Humanity Forward, and I work with Mia on the hangs and, you know, do phone banking and other that kind of stuff. And Angelo got me working on some testimony around UBI, poverty, and mental health. And so I have enjoyed getting sort of clear on my thinking about that, and just what a difference UBI makes to all manner of mental health issues.
Yeah, we really miss seeing Angelo here and hearing his unique voice here. But she's talking about Angelo Mendoza, who used to be here at the podcast a lot more often. Hellion Hellfire, is that right? On Twitter. And he started the UBI for, was it YangGang Goes to Congress, along with our friend Hannah Wong. And we haven't seen the two of them at the podcast for a while, but they're very busy. So
they are.
Testify for UBI. But,
that's right. There you go.
Went.
They're still working on it. They actually, and, you know, given that we were able to get a substantial number of folks in Congress, the UBI caucus is growing. And so
right.
We'll see.
I just think, like, what's amazing right now is they say, like, oh no, like UBI, that's kind of like going too far, when we've had like multiple instances of tons of things going too far just the past week. Like, if there was ever a year where like major changes are needed to deal with major problems, it's now.
You're there.
Yeah.
The other thing that they never quite calculate in is what we will not have to pay for if there's a UBI. We won't have to pay for so much in the way of mental health services in general, but especially emergency services. We won't have so much drug abuse. We won't have so many deaths of just like the things that we won't have to pay for are kind of hard to calculate and never get thrown into the math there.
So good thing that we were not actually tapped to testify anytime recently, considering all of the recent events up at the Capitol.
Yeah, I think it would have just gotten washed away with these news cycles. I think like we would have done it and it would have been like a blip on the radar, and then it's like, oh look, like these lunatics are just like trying to destroy our country. And we have to wait until that kind of settles down, and then, you know.
And they're definitely effective in distracting the country from, you know, actually getting any sort of real work done. So,
right. Yeah.
I know Shale has some pretty strong feelings about what went down over at the Capitol. Do you want to share them with us?
Oh yeah, sure. I'm baffled by like the consternation and finger wagging from the left. You know, I guess it's just any reason to hate the Trump supporters. I don't know. I mean, we've been outraged. We've been just, you know, completely frustrated with how Congress, our elected officials, don't represent the will of the people at all. So, I mean, I feel like they did the right thing for the wrong reasons. I'm not going to say, no, we can't do that, because electoralism has been failing us for years. You know, protests only work if they're disruptive, and we just witnessed the most disruptive protests I've ever seen. in America.
I also want you to notice though how it really backfired on them as well.
Yeah.
Most of the Republicans a lot of the Republicans who were fighting to try and just drag things out, changed their minds, dropped it immediately.
I mean,
so they lost all the will to fight against it politically because of how bad it looked. It's not exactly a winning strategy either.
No, they didn't. I don't know what they really intended. It's just sort of a demonstration of outrage, but I don't think Congress should feel safe from the people it's oppressing, And I don't support this nonsense of, Trump trying to say he should stay in the White House. Obviously, he should leave. He's a fiend, a buffoon. He's an evil villain. But, Congress is also an evil villain. Joe Biden is also an evil villain. We don't really have anyone representing the people, and the people rose up, but they're not the people that we're supposed to get along with. So everyone's like, these guys, fuck them. They're worse than the powerful people who are oppressing us, even though they're poor people like us. They're culturally on the other side. We gotta strike out at them with priority. That's how I feel the Twitter response has been.
Whoa. I have to stop you right there. These were privileged rioters.
Yeah.
This lady took a private jet.
All right. I mean, well, then I would like her to have no money.
Right, yeah, exactly. To get arrested and see what
Ariel, let me stop you. Just because one person had a private jet does not mean they all had a private jet, right? Like,
I know.
I really that, right? If I went and hung out at a YangGang rally, there's probably some people who have money and some who don't, right? Like, let's be honest and real. But I want to point out something major about what's like happening is people are like, oh, there's election fraud. I'm like, yes, but you're looking at the wrong fraud. Look at Yang Media blackout, right? That's where the real election fraud
there is
happened.
election fraud.
It was not with Trump. It was not with Biden. It was with Yang.
Yeah, it was also...
They literally have evidence.
It's suppression.
It was with Yang, it was with Bernie, it was with Tulsi, it was with Marianne Williamson. It was everyone who's not in the old boys club. That's how it's always going to be until that's why electoralism is not going to work. Something else has to happen.
While we are
it's like we can't just let the duopoly divide us, because that's what the duopoly does. That's why we lose. That's why we die.
We're on the subject of the wrong people doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Leslie, what kind of person is driven to do this kind of thing over nonsense? I asked you before the podcast started, but I really think that we could use your take, like, recorded for history's sake.
So I think what you're asking is about, like, why would somebody buy the BS solidly? So, I mean, there's several reasons. One is stuff is messy out here. Like, it's hard to do anything that's clearly and undisputedly right or clearly and undisputedly wrong. Things are messy. So if I show up and I say, hey, everybody, this is what's actually going on in the world. This is how we should actually interface with the world. And the people, they are going to tell you that this is wrong because of this, but they're really just trying to undermine us and take what we have. So what that does is a couple of things. You don't have to actually think about the messiness of what's right, what's wrong, what's appropriate, because I'm happy to lay all that out for you. And if you buy it, you now have a family, you have a community, and we're tight. We back each other, especially against them, because we know what they're about. So it becomes a very self-perpetuating thing. Because the tighter we get and the tighter dogmatically we get, the more holes kind of show up and the more people point out the holes, which reinforces that there's more and more people trying to undermine us and ruin what we have. Here we go. We feel righteous. Right.
But that's like both sides of the aisle, right? Like that's why it's like this big clash, right? It's not like something that one group is doing. It's like they rile up the other group, just like you would in like a football team or, sports teams in general, where they're just like, I'm against you, and then like maybe they just trashed the other group's locker room, or maybe they stole their pig because that was their mascot or something, right? You know, and so like this rivalry creates this action that is no longer part of the game, right? I feel like that's kind of what's happening, right?
For me,
well, and it used to be that there was less people in power would still say the same lines, do the same roles, but they could tell a difference in real life. They knew that they were often fighting for the same things, just for their side to win or whatever. Now, because of how particularly Paul Ryan and Nancy Pelosi have set things up, there is such a gulf in here. There is no room in here for anybody to actually have any real interactions or have any keep anything larger than my tribe in mind.
Wait a minute. We've had Paul Ryan on this podcast. So how is the setup that they did that you think? Was it a good setup, a bad setup? They need some fixing here and there, or
Paul
like
Ryan or Tim Ryan? I'm sorry.
oh damn it, I get my Ryans confused.
I was like, dang, I had no idea.
Damn it. No, sorry, I got my Ryans confused. Sorry, Tim Ryan. We had Tim Ryan on here. Yeah, they both have Ryan. Yeah. So sorry.
Yeah,
okay, so I know what I know what you mean now. Because now thinking about Paul Ryan, yeah.
Now I understand your confusion. Like what?
So, I think that in this particular case, it's not just that it's not the right people or the wrong people. I mean, that's mainly the reason that they did it was that, you know, the commander in chief was up there telling them to do this and undermining himself and like the institution that he supposedly stands for. He's supposed to be the leader of, and he's telling them to go in there and disrupt, you know, his own team. So it just doesn't make any sense. And so that's what we're really looking at is he doing something seditious or really, you know, that where he could be removed for his actions, because he is basically FBI's, you know, person number one. And the last time he was, you know, investigated, he continues to be that person number one who is causing all of the issues. So
well, something that pops in my head that makes me question is if he was doing this so he could get rid of some documentation at the place, or somebody was using this as a distraction technique. I'm sorry, you know, if somebody is causing a riot and a distraction, sometimes that's because they're hiding something, right? And they're trying to cover. Like there was one time I was hanging out with somebody, and this guy starts making a big fuss, right? Freaking out while talking to these cops over just smoking, right? But he made a big scene, and actually, like, a bunch of cops showed up, right? And then, like, took that guy away eventually. And I was like, that was really strange. Why did he do that? And the guy was like, probably because he's got some worse drugs that he was trying to distract from in his vehicle. And I was like, I could see that. That's actually quite logical, right? And it was a distraction technique, and it took him away, right? Got everyone distracted from what was really, you know, trying to be hidden. And so that's why I ask, because that was a big concern of mine. I'm like, is this just a distraction technique for something bigger? Or is this a media distraction technique from something, right? And that's where my brain goes. Like, not saying, like, I'm not trying to cause people to just, like, have conspiracy theories, right? Because that could be considered one. I'm not oblivious to this.
I had the same thought. I figured it might be kind of far-fetched, but we don't know what the evidence is yet. But if it's not reality, somebody should definitely turn it into a movie, because that would be a really good plot for a spy film. Like, wouldn't it? And you'd get to have all these people running around in those crazy costumes going through, and in the middle of it, you've got this really sneaky, stealthy spy, and everybody just assumes he's one of the rioters in the crowd, dressed up weird, and just goes through and gets.
You know, literally, all they would have to do for that is to just, like, make random cutscenes that they inject in there. I bet you some YouTuber could easily do this and just, like, grab actual footage and then throw in fake footage, and, like, nobody would be wiser. Nobody would be wiser. Oh man,
it sounds like when you play that game, Among Us.
But like with the intellectual level of some of these people who support Trump. I highly doubt that. I don't know.
I would not underestimate them. I would not underestimate them. Do not underestimate them. Everyone is a cheat sheet for something, okay? These guys might be a cheat sheet in like for maybe chaos or something, and they're the best at it, right? They're so happy about their knowledge, you know. Don't underestimate them.
Pelosi's laptop was stolen, and that so
there was a hilarious meme that showed some of the scenes, and it said, "Don't buy the distraction," and it had a picture of Nicolas Cage stealing the Declaration of Independence in a crowd, like.
the kind of lone wolf thing, yeah.
So I just want to say though, guys, I'm glad that we as a crew can report on things and have our perspectives shared with the world. I do love that I can trust this news channel source than other channels, right? And I like that we discuss it, right? And we have all these different viewpoints and angles and people from all over the United States even to chime in. So like, you know, that brings me joy because like, the news channels that exist out there right now, I don't trust them, and I have a hard time trusting them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they're so good at the smokescreen. They're so good at wag the dog. They're so good at create and show a lesser problem to hide the real problem. You gave a fantastic allegory. That story. I've never heard a better one for the way the media and the government work together to control the populace and to preserve the power of the elites. You know, people should be protesting Congress. People from all political stripes. You know, the 80+% of us who believe we need recurring monthly checks during this plague should be protesting in front of Congress. Instead, what happens? They get, you know, a small extremist faction shows up, and the media portrays it as a coup, and then we're not talking about the right thing anymore, and we're angry at the wrong people. We're angry at some poor schmucks from the other cultural side of the aisle instead of the powerful people from both sides of the aisle who are oppressing us. And I see it in some of our closest friends, you know, like I hate to put anybody on blast, but you know, we have very good rapport. So I'm going to say, and this is on Twitter, Diston, he retweeted a thread, and the whole point of the thread was just to identify and cancel a YangGang person who was there, who was present at the protest. And Don's like, you see, the smoking gun, he was there, he's no good. And I'm like, why link this me? Why? Anyway, I've been talking for a bit, so I'm going to hand off.
Well, we've got YangGang who have all different. Are you able to hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So we have YangGang of all different groups and of all different persuasions that, you know, had different allegiances, right? Before we all joined together and called ourselves YangGang. And so, yeah, I don't see. I feel that it was foolish to follow, you know, President Trump, but I don't see the point in, you know, pointing out individuals. It feels like when the teachers sit in the lunchroom and tell the children not to talk during lunchtime, and they give them a silent lunch for punishment for talking too much last time, and then they single out the individual kids who come out to talk, you know, who happen to be whispering something to their friends. They single them out and call them out by name. I mean, it's just so petty. You know, we don't need to do that with each other.
Well, the thing too is, like, I don't know if you guys have seen The Road to El Dorado, but the two brothers or whatever they are were like pretending to have a fight, but in reality, they're like nothing's actually happening between them, right? It's a distraction technique while they're stealing the rest of the people's money, and that's our society right now. Like, we got this distraction thing while they're stealing our money, and it's literally the intro to the Road of El Dorado. Like, guys, we need to pay attention to like narcissistic techniques, even, you know, and other manipulative tactics. And I don't think people even recognize signs. Since we have you here, Leslie, would you talk about some of these different techniques on a political scale people use so we can help identify it when it's happening?
So, well, I can think about it actually on both sides of it. So similar to what we started talking about before, part of the way I might get people to start following me, to start being in my gang, is to kind of put myself on their team, even though they didn't ask for me to be on their team. So like on a very small scale, you know, if I see Mia carrying groceries and I want access to her house, but she doesn't know me very well, I might walk up to the back of her car and pick up a bag of groceries and say, well, we need to get these in so we can get them in the fridge, right? I suddenly put myself on her team. She didn't ask and she didn't know me from Adam's house cat. So, but now we're in something together. And politics does this. Like they use the rhetoric of sounding like, look, we're together. I am so for you. Independent of what the actual motivations are, independent of what my actual behavior is, I frame it as if we're on the same team. And then often that you throw in, similar to what I was saying before, we have to watch out for them. Go back to Mia getting the groceries out of the back of her car. When I go to get the groceries and she's like, back off, I don't need you to, I've got my groceries. I might say something like, you know, there is something to being too strong and not accepting help, right? So I now undermine her ability, I sort of take a shot at her ability to accurately assess the situation. We do this on a political level too. Like we undermine reasonable arguments. We go ahead and sort of poison the well a little bit to make it harder for you to be clear about what you think and clearly assess the situation. It's sneaky, messy stuff.
That happens at school sometimes too, and sometimes teachers can do that to students, to parents. It's like, oh yeah, they need this help, and they're like, no, I don't really think my kid. Look, if you value this, then you're gonna, you know, there's a lot of coercion in our society that's very under the radar.
Yeah,
to bring up something that kind of
workplaces all over. Sorry, Faye, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just gonna say this and be transparent about this. So during the training during Yang Week, Yang Month, right? People were trying to explain tactics in order to win the caucus votes, and it came off really manipulative, right? And they were like, okay, we're going to pretend to be on their side, right? And they're like, so everything you're saying, it was like a tactic they were training people how to do. And I was like, whoa! I mean, culture shock to me, because I know nothing about this, but they were just talking manipulative games with people's lives, right? And it was...
salesmen do in the sales world, you get punished if you're not like that. And this is why the freedom dividend is so important. MLMs it's their bread and butter. It is their bread and butter in a lot of sales. It's like if you are on the phone and you're selling something that is like high ticket and extremely expensive, it's like, and the conversations are recorded, and then like you didn't get to sell that person something, and the boss listens to it, and it's like you didn't exploit this person's weakness here or there, or talk to them in that way, and like that's why our sales numbers are low. It is so gross.
It's also really important.
Part of what... Go ahead, Mia.
I was going to say, I think it's also pretty important to... now I'm losing the thought now that I'm trying to say it. Go ahead. I'll get it back. Then I'll come through.
Well, I wanted to also say hi to Kai, who has been very patient and joined us. How are you doing?
Hi, everybody? Can you hear me?
Excellent. Mm-hmm.
Good. This is part of my new audio setup.
It's working great.
I have a box.
Well, if you can, though. Turn it up a little if you can.
Okay, let me see. I just got it. So, hold on. 10-4. Gotcha. Is that better? Are we getting better?
A little bit.
Good.
Better.
Yeah, you sound good. Do turn the gain up a little bit, though, yeah.
Yeah, that's the master. Hold on, let me do the...
So, Leslie, one of the things about our group is that we're just poor and we're slowly evolving and leveling up our stuff, we also had to teach ourselves how to do absolutely everything. So, like, thank you for your patience with our learning curves.
No worries. This is how we are on the hangs sometimes too.
This is where I've had a lifetime of being both in production studio and like in theater stuff. So like the mechanics of it, no problem. The gear and through the computer, that's all new for me.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for your patience.
Yeah, you're gonna say something though. What was it you wanted to touch on, Kai?
Oh, well, I think that so and Shell shared a video with me earlier. Music, and it taps directly into what we're saying about using these manipulative tactics and all the layering of the messaging of the politics and where does that come from and how long has this been going on. The answer that I have is it's been going on for the entirety of human history, particularly at the point that our native tribes of 60 to 200 people started interacting with other tribes. And so, like, if we can like go back to the root of where it's coming from, that allows us to have the answer of how then can we subvert that or get around it so that we're less affected by it. It's like, oh, this goes all the way back to kind of this primitive time when everything was scarce and every new encounter was life or death. And if it was life, that meant a larger community, a larger gene pool, and death meant death. So we proceeded very carefully. And so all these things that the tools, the manipulative tactics, like what Faye was taught as she was going out and campaigning for Yang, like all of those things are really well established. And the reason they're well established is because our brains are trained to look for those little ins. But it goes back to the root of, like, my community is this small organism. And the minute I start getting bigger than that community, it's life or death, every interaction. And so now we've built civilization to a point where literally almost everybody that is in our lives is a stranger. And I don't mean that in the sense of we can't develop normal relationships. I'm just saying that it's so far from how our brains and our bodies like evolved to work in community that we are kind of, even with our own biological families, then kind of living with strangers because so many people spend so many hours of their day outside of the home, outside of the organic community, and in an artificial one because we need to make money at a job to provide for that organic community versus relying on the organic community to function properly to provide for the individuals in it. So we've turned it all the way upside down. And this is where, and this is something that's been talked about in spiritual communities forever, is how do you flip it back? How do you push people's awareness to be like, oh, well, and this is what's going on. And so now I don't have to be so afraid because we have everything we need. Now we have global communication devices where we can communicate like grown adults who aren't threatened by anybody.
Point something out. I want to point something out. So, okay, as I've been interviewing people here in Alabama, right, I'm noticing a severe amount of paranoia, right? A significant amount of paranoia. I'm a little concerned, right? And some of this concern is I don't trust even the neighbor kind of thing, right? Now, me, I'm not loyal to any of these people, right? I have no ties to any side of the aisle, right? And with the investigation that I've been doing on the ground level, you know, I'm crossing between these worlds. And I'm learning who has beef with whoever else, right? And it's like, but I mean, you know, you target people you don't know if you're trying to like stay safe, right? And so like everyone's just mad at everyone too. But you know, I also noticed there's a Confederate flag at the neighbor's house, right? Well, I went and talked to him about that. I'm like, what is mean to you? I didn't even start it off. I didn't prep it at all. I was just like, what does this mean to you? And they were like, oh, I've had it at every house. It was gifted to me. It's pretty much, he's saying it's nostalgic. I'm like, huh. Okay, well, I'm pretty sure your neighbor is a little concerned about it, right? Or at least people in the community, right? And so, that's a signal to them that is being misinterpreted, right? And we send out these signals, like maybe you have Harry Potter stuff, but you absolutely hate Harry Potter, and people are like, oh, I love Harry Potter. You're sending the wrong signals to the world, right? If you want to talk about Harry Potter, wear Harry Potter stuff. But if you don't, trade it, man, right? And so we don't have these signals of ways to communicate to each other. I noticed when I got a certain tattoo, a specific group of people started talking to me, right? And so we are not taught how to send the right signals to other people as well, right? We don't even know what belonging cues look like sometimes. We don't understand the actual meaning behind laughter and body language, right? Like, these are things that are so subtle and we don't ever get taught that we might misinterpret it. I might giggle at something because I think, that was humorous to me, but someone might take that very personally, right? And so it's like all of these personal narratives we have that has groomed us into thinking they're bad. They think this terrible thing about me, but we don't have time to work on ourselves enough to even do anything about it, right? That's the problem.
Well, but I think
we
the
don't
other
have
thing that's
skills
going on.
to do that work.
I'm sorry, Leslie. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
We don't learn skills to do that work either.
So, and this is where I think that we are very, very much taught all of those clues, all of those cues that you're talking about, Faye. I think we're very actively taught that every single second that we're looking at the television and the movie and the moving pictures with the sound and the bright lights, okay? We're being taught how to read those cues. But the take that we're coming away with it is the wrong take. It's kind of like Yang always said, Donald Trump is not the problem. He's not the problem. He's got the wrong solutions. He's got his finger on what people care about. So don't throw the whole baby out with the bathwater. And I think that's kind of what's going on. It's that sort of stuff. It's like, no. We all know, we all see it, we all experience it, we all feel it on a visceral level. But because of propaganda, because of subliminal stuff, because of brainwashing, because of this, just the toxic chemicals that affect all of it. I mean, and just all the disconnection from living a natural, organic, connected life. And I don't mean it in the sense of organic food movement. I mean natural to our bodies, natural to our spirits, natural to the way our brains develop, right? Organic.
I never even learned psychology until I went to college for it, right? We don't even get taught how to navigate our own brains. But I think we hadn't known. I mean,
navigate our own wallets, and the people who prey on us just for money. It all goes back to the sales and coercion and I need this. And when you have that economic floor.
Part of the reason that we've been pushing so hard for education reform, so many of us understand that the educational system isn't providing thinking skills. It's not providing community skills.
Complicity
it's
skills.
Providing work skills. And it's been like that from the very beginning.
Yeah.
I would like to go back to something we were talking about before. I remembered what it was finally that I was going to say. I think it's important to also have people who are counteracting that kind of manipulation for the better, because there are a lot of people out there canvassing for nefarious means. The YangGang had a very persuasive method in using their humanity first values whenever speaking to other people, and always trying to come to them from a perspective of helpfulness, which is by coincidence and by evolution also a helpful and persuasive method. So if you're trying to help somebody, you are naturally persuasive. So anybody with good intention should be out there canvassing and doing work. If you are passionate or invested in what you are saying, it will come off, it will show through, and you will be far more effective than the negative forces that we are trying to counter.
What I would like to Oh,
Be
go
there.
ahead.
Do it when you can.
I think we also need to. Sorry, Faye. I'll just wrap this quickly. So I think we also need to recognize that we need to crowdfund grassroots for activists, right? These are the people like us trying to do the work that can barely meet our needs, right? Imagine if we got fueled as a source instead of these politicians that are going to go blow it on some party anyway, right? Or whatever. I don't know how they're actually spending it, but we don't trust the government, right? But I trust you guys. I would love to grassroots fundraise for you guys, like, right? Like that would be more beneficial to me. That would be beneficial to the team, to the message, to all these things, right? But we have so many roadblocks with just our knowledge, our resources, blah, 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 right? So we have to go super creative and go on a whole quest instead of this instant gratification that these other people are getting. Like we have to do something about that.
I wanted to agree with Faye, but also go back to the example that Leslie gave of somebody sort of trying to coercing you to believe that they're on your team by coming to pick up your groceries for you and moving it. There's nothing wrong with actually offering to help somebody with their groceries. There's a way to do that, and there's a way to do that in a way that's actually that would be beneficial to both of you, and that would be friendship building rather than sort of this sort of I'm going to hijack you for my own means and without your consent, sort of force you to come along with me. And that's what we're wanting to do when we organize, right, Leslie?
That's part of why it works, is that it sits alongside and it looks an awful lot like me being helpful to Mia. It's just a little nudge a little further. So if I just came up and Mia's getting groceries out of her car and I said, let me into your house so I can steal stuff, that's easy. She's going to be like, no, buzz off. But instead, I do something that looks an awful lot like it sits close to me saying, hey, you have a lot of groceries. Would you like some help?
Another one, you just remind me of something. It's also has to do with a desperation. Like if people are more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like if they're in that mindset of scarcity, they want like that tribe. They want someone to help. They want someone to like come and save them, because, things around them might stink for a number of reasons. Some reasons within their control, some reasons without their control. So people are more susceptible to this kind of like manipulation tactics and these psychological tactics when they're more desperate, because maybe they didn't have that mom or that dad or that uncle or their aunt or grandma and grandpa to like really feel close to. So some con man comes along or some cult leader comes along, they love bomb them first, like you belong here and we love you here. And then after the love bombing is done, it's like, boom, you're in, and like we want you to go and like do this like crazy shit. And then it's like, if you don't do this crazy shit, you're not part of, what we are over here.
But that's literally when there's the scarcity, we literally have a lower IQ. We literally have a smaller bandwidth. So trying to think outside of that and have a clear analysis of what I'm doing relative to being in groceries, it's harder to have the bandwidth to notice or act on it.
So this really leads back to
controlled.
This is great because Ariel, you just led us back to what is Leslie's primary motive for getting out as a public speaker, as to tell people about what it means for mental health when you live in poverty, and how UBI could really ameliorate that.
And that's why it makes me so mad when people say, "Oh, well, these people should have known better. It was their own fault, or they should have just pulled them up by their bootstraps." Well, the only reason you probably know better and you didn't get duped, and if you didn't get fooled, is because you probably had parents that told you this is a scam, this is a liar, this is a person who just wants to manipulate you. And you can't blame the people who are susceptible to those lies and manipulations, who didn't have those supporting figures that you had, who protected you from predators who just wanted to use you or lie to you or use you as a pawn.
they protect you and don't teach you the methods that they are employing, then you are more likely, if in your own situation, to get scammed when you're not being protected by these people, right? These are tools in our tool belts we must develop ourselves, right?
But some people have the kind of support network that can help them develop those tools, and some people don't have that. And that's why we can't put all people in a box, because even for this, like, there was the lady from Knoxville, Tennessee, who was maced, and she was crying, and then the late night television show comedians were making fun of her. Well, of course, like, what do you expect, you dummy? But did that lady, like, do we know, like, who the influences were in her life that, like, it all led to her thinking like that? Do we know, like, the toxic people she had around her for their situations? I'm not saying what she did was right, but I'm just saying it's like a failure to just, recognize that these people are coming from different places, and they
Are you saying that it might be better for us to send them to a mental health institution as opposed to sending them to jail?
Something like
maybe.
that,
I wouldn't go that route. My argument is always going to be, no, we need to understand what, like, and we do. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I would have been right there with her if just a few things were a little bit different in my life, and I ended up a Republican like the rest of my family. I live in the Midwest. There aren't that many radical liberals. So, like, this is where it's like, I've felt my whole life ready for the revolution, and I didn't even know what that meant until I got older. And then the questions got deeper, and the questions got deeper. And some people don't know how to get to the deeper questioning again because they're trapped in survival mode all the time. Capitalism builds that kind of panic for those of us who have to keep the system churning, right? Because if we're not panicked, we're not going to run on the damn wheel. It's not going to work. Like, so we'll do it for as long as we need to do it for the exercise, and then we hop off and we're like, peace out, brother. But they've structured this, the 40-hour work week, which is just a myth. It's completely a myth. We don't need it.
The other thing I want...
there should be zero unemployment. If somebody wants to work, there's plenty of work to do. Go do work. Get paid for it. What's the problem? Oh, it's the pay. That's the problem. Mm-hmm. is connected to how we valued everything at the point.
And it's the roadblocks that they put in your way, like who are your connections? We're gonna have the starter interview and the later interview and this and that and the other thing, and it's like, God damn it! Like, just look. Do you want me to do this or do you not want me to do this? Like, get the hell out of here! It's like and they don't like this. This was so pissing me off when I was a job seeker. It's like assessment 1, assessment 2, assessment 3, interview 1, interview 2, interview 3 for a minimum wage job. Shove it up your ass. It's like, it shouldn't be like this at all. I mean, it's ridiculous.
The other thing structurally is that, like, there has to be a certain, like, the system will never support an unemployment rate of 0. Because we need unemployed people. So, if you mess up, he can replace you 14 times over before you can turn around and get out the door. So, like, that threat has to stay dangling. There has to be this group of people.
The sword of Damocles.
Yes.
Right.
So,
and it's a disgusting way to live in a 21st century where we have medicine, we have air travel, we have space travel, we have, like, I'm talking to you from thousands of miles away. We have, look, like I have this, like, science magazine, like a blimp in the air. It's like we have 3D printing. We can create so much abundance, and yet we have these wrinkled up assholes. Sorry, I get in their 80s keeping a world of scarcity. They can go to hell.
Well, I want to bring up something too, though. We kind of disassociate when we're in a traumatic incident, right? Some of us, not all of us, but it does happen. and then you're just a puppet on strings, right? Whatever you encoded in your brain prior to this happening is how you're going to act. And sometimes we learn our cues even from movies. Well, I'm sorry, but some of the movies that we learned from maybe when we were a kid were kind of toxic, okay? And then we learned our cues from those characters, right? And then that's affected our adult behavior because we're like, oh, I'm not going to be like this guy. Well, when you're an adult, maybe you realize that was actually the bad guy and you didn't realize it, right? Batman could be the bad guy because he's the rich guy keeping the money from all the poor guys, and the poor guys get desperate, right? And he's justifying beating them up when really, if he just gave them a universal basic income, would Batman exist? I don't know, right? These are things we need to consider, that maybe we saw the world wrong when we were a kid, and we have nostalgia attached to certain things that we need to let go.
Right. Yeah.
If there was UBI, Batman would be a lot less busy.
Yeah, I would like to hear.
In pilot after pilot after pilot, crime goes down, drug and alcohol use goes, all of it. Whenever I hear, oh, we have a new UBI pilot, I just want to throttle somebody. It's like, we don't need any more pilots. We know what happens here. It's good news. Why do we have to flush money and pretend like we're trying to learn something new? We're not gonna. We're gonna learn that mental health improves. We're gonna learn that parents get along better with their kids. We're gonna lots of outcomes.
The only reason I
it's
think
the
that
same
we should
thing with
pilots is that you get a brief few moments where a couple of people who needed a UBI pilot get helped. I would make excuses.
These pilots, just like how unemployment creates this artificial scarcity, is I think involuntary unemployment is like a pilot too. It's like we're just gonna have these people who can't get their foot in the door, and it's okay, and we're just gonna leave them to have this miserable fate and just be attached to all of these programs and coerce them into this impoverishedness, even though when they did the right things, they got educated, they got good grades, they went to school, and it's barbaric, disgusting, and it's shameful. So I mean that's something we really got to look at. We really got to look at that.
I would like to hear Leslie tell us more about some of the information that she had been researching for the Testify for UBI. Share some of that with us. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because how I actually stumbled upon this had nothing to do with Andrew Yang, and it wasn't even framed as part of a UBI. But around 2000, I was looking at a professional journal, and a little blurb buried in the back of the journal, a paragraph. There was a study in Western North Carolina. They were studying adolescent mental health, and it was a 9-year study. In the middle of the study, having nothing to do with the study, Cherokee got the rights to have a casino, and they gave a dividend to every member of the tribe. So all of a sudden, a quarter of the study, they are no longer poor. Literally nothing else changed. They didn't spend more time with their children. They weren't better parents. They didn't, none of that changed. The only thing that changed is they were not poor. For that 25%, mental health symptoms went off a cliff. Overnight, in half. There's no other explanation. We watched lifting people out of poverty cure mental health. My profession is now irrelevant. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, so this is why is this not policy? Why isn't this
you just said it, Leslie. You just said it. Your profession is gone, right? So what do you think that's going to do for Purdue Pharma? What do you think that's going to do to all these, if you have anxiety, try Zoloft, try this, try that. They're going to tank. And they're making
because instead of taking Zoloft, people you know what? I'm going to go fly a kite a few miles away where there's no wind.
Right. So it's
I'm going to make art.
Well, it's I don't even have the anxiety to cure. It's what is Zoloft address? Exactly. Ambient anxiety. So, why are you ambiently anxious? I might be kicked out of my house if I don't have enough money. So you don't need to fly a kite. You can think about it if you want. If you want to fly a kite, for sure. But
right.
Why is it not policy? Racketeering, economic protectionism.
So the mechanism underneath is the same thing that's driving it all. Even the people who are engaging in all of this kind of abusive tactics to keep us all participating in the system, they're prey in it too. So there's no one immune. And so the trick is doing exactly what we're doing right now, which is just calling it out for what it is. We're being constantly manipulated on how to think and how to feel. It's based on marketers' knowledge,
right?
How to get right into the button to trip the mechanism, so everything's knee jerk, nothing's up
and
here,
remember,
nothing is
with the Yang media blackout,
and calm.
Freedom of speech is not freedom of reach. Let's keep that in mind too. How many people are really watching this? How is the algorithm going to treat what we're saying right here to some 5-year-old kid's unboxing like his first toy, getting like, millions of views and stuff like that? It's by design.
Well, so I don't want to go away from that. I'll come back to that, but I wanted to say something to what Kai was saying about. Well, actually, I don't know. Anyway, so the medicine that we're taking goes through our body and it has to leave our body, right? And so that gets into our sewer water, that gets into our groundwater, and we already have all these chemical plants too, right? And that's already leaching into our water. Like literally, it's causing problems because we are processing chemicals that should not be where they are, right? And if you have homeless people on the street who are taking drugs, maybe they're on heroin or meth, right? They also have to go to the bathroom, but maybe all the bathrooms closed because of pandemic. So guess where they're going pee? Okay. And then animals and people, they walk through that stuff, right? And then it spreads this like disease that could be possible, right? Maybe it causes cancer. Maybe it causes other things that we've never even fathomed about, right? So by not providing bathrooms, right, by not providing ways to get away from this like anxiety, the medicine, right, we've literally started causing cancer in our own society. We really need to work on our mental health.
And I heard Leslie ask that question, like, why aren't we doing these things after we've had study after study and opportunities to see this happen over and over again? We know that it creates better mental health. First of all, I think not everybody does know it because people aren't paying attention to the right things. Our old toxic narratives just keep driving everything. But the second real problem, I think, is that people just don't care. And I think that's really hard to bear. That's something that's difficult for people to feel, we want to rationalize that away. No, of course people care. But the fact is we don't care because we're so focused on basic survival, focused on the things that we don't have that extra, like you said, the bandwidth in order to care about somebody else as deeply as we should. We can't care about the environment because, hey, first I got to make sure I have a place to live. I have to make sure that I have food for my children and clothing. And so all of those things just become unimportant. Everybody else is unimportant. The environment is unimportant. And so people just have lost the ability to care. And we're going down in the wrong direction because of this focus on GDP, focus on money. Money is what is driving every decision that we take. And we shouldn't have to be making these artificial decisions. We should be able to focus on, real life living quality and things like that.
Faye, like when the main oligarchs at the top of the food chain control all the information we see and hear, it's like, what are you like? Obviously, what do these people thrive on? Like your ignorance and your apathy. So they create the whole media apparatus to be propaganda with their tons of dark money that they get from all of the dark incentives making us all miserable. So if we can just throw a monkey wrench into that whole thing, I think, we can really get somewhere.
You mean like sending people into the Capitol to disrupt their counting of ballots and so forth?
No, hang on. No, not that. No, I'm talking about sending people into MSNBC and CNN and Fox News, not the Capitol. They're worse than the Capitol. Like, protest in front of CNN, NBC, and Fox News and say, your news is shit and we're sick and tired of it. How about that?
We can't hear you. We can't hear you, Faye.
Oh, I think we're doing that punk protest right now by doing our own radio show, our own broadcast. But at the same time, this thing about going up to the Capitol, right, and stopping them from doing what they normally do and disrupting their normal processes, would be a valid one, right? If only we actually had something to replace that with, right? Right now, we don't have. You can go up there and disrupt, but then what is it that you want them to do? We don't have the policy that we're saying, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to disrupt you until this is done. So we need to have a goal. It has to be goal oriented. And the goal is definitely not to let it continue, right?
So, right, like what
and give them a template to step into.
Right.
So some of the solutions we're looking at, right, might be one, of course, the UBI. That's what we're all here for. We're here gathered today because of UBI. But a second thing could be, like in terms of, the politicians, we've got to figure out how do we get them to listen better.
Well, so, it's just like in the Batman movie when Joker said, it's like, I'm just a dog chasing cars. I'd never actually know what to do if I finally caught it. And I think that's where those rabid Trump supporters found themselves when they made it actually like into the chambers. They were like so happy and they were like, yeah. And then like, okay, you idiots, what comes after that? And they're like, oh, we haven't really thought of that part.
They thought they would get that far, right?
Right, exactly. They didn't think they would get that far. And even though that guy sat in one of the senator's seat, like that hillbilly was like, Trump won, hooray! Like, no, that's not going to change anything tomorrow.
That's so
crazy.
They're
coming back. They're going to arrest you. That this isn't going to go. I don't know.
Let me just point out the cultural disparity on the right and the left, and something you point out. The right. I mean, this is just reductionist, broad stroking people, but this is just, there's a general problem in right culture where like, it's like, we will do anything. We're not going to think it through too much. We're not going to let thinking it through stop us. And the thing on the left, we will not do anything because we have not thought it through enough. We can always think it through more. We have analysis paralysis. Let's never do a damn thing. So the actors are bad and the non-actors are irrelevant, and that's the system.
Before we run out of time, I want to ask one more question of Leslie and then a question of everybody who is here. Leslie, this is relevant because it's in the news lately. What do you think are the likelihoods that people could, whether or not it's going to happen or not, actually get Trump on the 25th Amendment for his mental state and capacity? Do you think that's even a plausible thing?
Oh, clinically, he's batshit crazy at this point. Like, clinically, there's all kind of grounds. There's only the will that's missing. So, clinically speaking, this is not hard. People have been saying this since before he was elected. It's just, and like once his diagnosis was clear, well before he was elected, how this was going to go was not confusing or hard to predict. So
what is his diagnosis by the mental health community?
Chat crazy.
Well, actually, I mean, narcissistic personality disorder is probably the closest. And he's been enabled for his entire life. So completely unchecked. He's never run into a situation where somebody held a line and said, actually, it stops here. So having never had that, he doesn't know what to make of it. And the government is built around understandings and norms and not no, seriously, this is where that line is.
So how do we do that? How do we do that? How do we like do all the mental health like practitioners need to write some letter to somebody? Like what is
I
the
think that's
line?
been done. There was like
Lots
1,000
of mental
therapists
health
or something,
practitioners,
right?
yes,
Who got together and wrote a
have
letter.
made this abundantly clear. The problem is that the system is set up to support that. The system is set up for that to be possible. And so this is sort of looping back to UBI and mental health. Like if everybody's freaked out, somebody who looks like they will say whatever on your behalf, I'm here for it, because how this is so far has done nothing for me. I'm teetering on the edge as it is. You're coming in like a bull in a china shop and say you're going to make something happen. Done and done. Laminate my card. Here I am. So
that does sound like 2016 wrapped up in a nutshell.
Okay.
Go first.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
My second portion was I just wanted to see your three options are impeached, 25th Amendment, or clock runs out. I want everybody's predictions on this matter before it happens.
Or preference.
Predictions, not preference.
Clock
We're not.
runs
I want you to think
out.
of what will really happen.
Clock runs out. Nothing
Clock
ever
runs out.
happens. Clock runs out.
I'd have to say clock
not gonna
runs
do
out.
anything.
Yeah, clock runs out.
Always been on
Because
inaction
by
in
the
the United
time
States.
by the time you want to do all that stuff, you're gonna be in the middle of it, and the clock has ran out. If we know how slow and incompetent like some of our bureaucratic systems are, the clock's gonna run out. Like,
So clock runs out on which day? The 20th of this month, or?
Yeah, that would be when Biden is inaugurated.
If they're gonna stage something crazy when that happens, like they're most likely gonna be caught. I mean, they're not gonna have the kind of like because you got to think about it. This wasn't just some ragtag group of lunatics that came out of nowhere. This was like Biden said, like you could just see it coming. It's there. He said it. He brought them there. He advertised it. He said it was going to be crazy on Twitter. Like, I don't know how much more obvious you can get. It's like, oh, like we already know that like the train is derailed like 20 miles out, but we're still sitting on it, like, let's not worry.
Let's say hi to Boyce.
Welcome to our channel.
From Mindful
Hi,
Skeptic.
Boyce.
Hey, Boyce, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
I just want to jump in and just check in with you guys. I'm in between patients driving, and Sheila invited me earlier, and I think I'm busy, but I can jump in for a little bit between patients.
It's really great to see you. Thanks for coming, man.
We have about 20 minutes with you before Leslie is going to need to do her closing so we can get her back to work. She's taking time out of a very busy workday, just like you do, to do your politics and speaking with the rest of YangGang.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, can I add one more? This is another one of my favorite. I could do this all day and annoy people, but there's this one other little study. It was so little, but every time I think of it, it just. So in London, it was a group working with what they call hard sleepers. So basically, addicts who sleep outside, hard sleepers. And they had done programs, and they had supportive services like this, and blah blah blah, and nothing ever moved anything. So finally, at some point, they were like, "Oh, screw it. Let's just give them money. Like, we got nothing else. I don't know. Let's try this." So they did. They gave them, I can't remember how much, every month for a year. At the end of the year, like, almost all of them were clean. Almost all of them had a regular, stable place to live. Many of them had reconciled with their families. Many of them had gone back to school and gotten and I mean, it was ridiculous. Like, these are guys that they essentially had just thrown away, and they're like, whatever, we'll do this really stupid thing and just give them money. And it fixed everything. And so, of course, they discontinued it after a year. And it was actually cheaper. It was cheaper to just give them money than to keep throwing money at all of these programs so we can help people. Like, it was cheaper, and it had a way better outcome. And so, of course, they discontinued it.
Well, of course they did, because you cannot reveal the cold, hard truth of the system, which is that it's based on, the fact that you can't go to zero unemployment, because that doesn't work. And you must have slaves. You have to have humans able that you can force to work for free. And we have that in the prison system. We've never gotten rid of it. We just changed where it happens. It's not happening. It's happening through our court systems now. It's not happening any other way. It's become part of how we function. It was always part of how we functioned, but we had.
I wonder if
too.
if the same person with the mental capacity of Trump was not born into all this wealth and privilege, if he was born into like squalor, if he would have been one of those slaves.
But
If he had been born into the middle class, he would have been one of those slaves, because the middle class doesn't have a lot of room before you slip either. You fall.
My dad is just
true.
like Donald Trump.
Go ahead.
I just
Leslie.
also want to say nobody gets to behave like this because they had a good life. So he had money. He did not have a good life. He was not treated well. And the disconnection that you have to get slammed into when you're very young to be able to behave like this is brutal. I'm not making excuses. It doesn't make his behavior okay. But I don't want to frame like, oh, he had a good life because they had money. They had money instead of actual connection, support, and other stuff. So
I get it, Leslie. Yeah.
Hey, I can't hear you.
I said I get it.
Oh, I think she was talking about me. I wanted to hear Boyce's opinions on recent events. You were following it and documenting it, right? A little bit.
Yeah. You talking about just this whole week's debacle?
How do you feel about remove Trump? Is this something that needs to happen?
It's not about need. It's what's constitutionally obligation by the Senate and the Congress. It's their constitutional obligation to do it. It don't matter if it's in 30 minutes. You know, you have to hold him accountable. And if he is impeached, he's no longer eligible to run for president. And we just end this shit. In my book, it's a statement. You gotta just like, oh well, if you don't, he's above the law still.
So you're on they're going to impeach him path, huh?
Yeah, I say the 25th Amendment makes the most sense. It's the most appropriate.
The 25th Amendment.
That's why you have a cabinet is to hold the highest position accountable, and that's why Mitch McConnell's wife quit ASAP. She don't want to be another part of it, you know. So that's why I think it should be 25th Amendment. If they don't do their job, then that's why we have checks and balances. Now we have Congress. They got to do their job. That's the next line of, like I say, constitutional responsibility goes to Congress to impeach.
Do you think they will, or do you think they'll run out the clock?
Though of course they're going to run out the clock. But
okay,
he's got to be impeached just like he was before. He'll be the first one to be twice impeached. That'd be freaking hilarious, actually. But they would put him where he belongs, at the bottom.
There's some discussion that he may not ever be eligible to run for office again, actually, because he's already been impeached once. There is not a clear precedent for that because it's never happened really before ever. So there are still some kind of, even if they don't impeach him, I don't want people to like get on the bandwagon of, oh, we have to be afraid we could have another. That's the sort of thinking that got us here. It's not going to fix anything. And I think the chances of it happening are slim to none. Because I'll tell you right now, we're going to get more and more voters that are kids watching all of this. They're my kids. Some of your kids, right, are watching this. They're going to be able to vote in a couple years. They're going to be able to vote by the time 2024 hits. There's no chance. Like, and I say that just from the logistics of it. There is no chance Trump will ever be able to sit in that office again as the leader of this nation.
It's not actually my biggest worry. Okay.
I'm wondering if this is going to require the participation of the vice president, though, who is just going to refuse to absolutely answer any questions or show up anywhere.
Right. I mean, talk about shooting yourself in the foot. What Trump, like, this is the ultimate shot in the foot. Go ahead, Leslie.
Well, I think
Trump.
Another narcissist or another somebody with the same aims as him who is less messy is more dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it'll be Trump. But I don't think we're done.
That's why Yang has to swoop in 2024 and just.
And I think
yeah.
I think this is also why 2016 was so very divisive, because for as many people who felt so strongly that gut reaction of, oh, there's something wrong with Donald Trump, he's going to be a disaster, he's going to ruin it for everybody, as many people, almost equal numbers on the other side, felt that way about Hillary. That's why she didn't win ultimately in the way that the system is built. So if we cannot touch into that root, we're not going to be able to carry this mission forward of having a political system that's not what we have, and that's something that's actually for us, the people.
I think something needs to be built right now that helps even Congress and all of this be even more accountable, because like it needs to be a grassroots kind of accountability, because right now it doesn't feel like we have any say in like stopping these kind of behaviors, and in a lot of ways we feel powerless, and I think it is up to us, the people, to build something, right? And I'm just curious what that would look like and how we can implement something like that. That to me is an actionable solution to a systematic change.
Here's what I put on my Twitter. I said, I'm sick and tired of these, democratic causes sending me emails asking me for money. I said, you're going to have the presidency, you're going to have the Senate, and you're going to have the House. I don't want to hear any more excuses. So, like, right when they get all three branches, and mind you, I know it's 50-50 in the Senate, but if they do not say what they were put in there to do, we're not playing boogeyman anymore. We're going to find something totally different, and we're going to say, like then we're going to have someone else primary you. It's not about DNR anymore. The Ds are in, and we have to watch their behavior and keep them accountable. That's the main takeaway that I think.
See, we already feel this way, and we're not doing it. That's my concern.
Well, I mean, Mitch was blocking everything. He's not going to have that power anymore. There's a caveat there, and that's a big reality.
Okay.
I would love to see our country actually utilize some of this great technology that we've been engineering, because there's a lot of improvements that can be made in the political realm if we just accept that change is here. We can continue to evolve. All of these situations are evolving situations, and so
these games that are super high tech and like super in depth with like all these like really like evolvable concepts. Why can't we do that with our government? If you can do a video game coding, you could do this for our society, I think.
So, I mean, we have the ability and the technology right now to allow all of us to become voters on any particular, thing that needs to be voted on. We just don't have, as human beings, the ability to process that much information and to actually take that much time and energy out of our lives, right? To participate in the voting fully. But if we have algorithms that allow us to follow particular people, we can switch our vote from one person to another very quickly. So if we say, hey, we don't like what McConnell's doing right now, even though we elected him 3 years ago, I can immediately say, I'm no longer going to put my support towards him. I'm going to support this other person that I think is a better legislator. And so I think we need to be talking about more innovative solutions for our country. Like the reason that this is happening now is because we had a system that allows the president to be elected, and then 2 whole months go by before he is out of office. So within 2 months, how much time is that nowadays, right? But in the past, we needed that time just for whoever it was that was elected to slowly move himself and his family over to the White House, right? And all of these things had to happen by carriage or back in the day. But we've never updated our democracy to reflect the new realities of our times. And two months is just way too long. And so that's the thing, is our legislative system is going slower and slower, but our engineering and our life faster, and we just can't get them to match up. So once again, Yang was right. We need that office of technology right now or 20 years ago.
What I'm hearing though is like an active update of cancel culture to some capacity of like, hey, I want to fire this politician. Can we please fire this politician? Look, everyone agrees we should fire. And it's not just like one big wig at the top being like, nah, I'm gonna keep this guy because I owe them some money, right? Like I feel like it would almost be a better way of like hiring and firing people, but like,
well, the person doesn't need to be fired. I could just like instantaneously say from now on, I'm going to have my vote be represented by this other person who's already up there in Congress. And so, you have to constantly fulfill your promises or make good decisions so that your followers are going to continue following you. I think that should be very simple, and then their votes could be, weighted by how many people are actually backing them at that moment.
I think the future of politics too needs to start looking very seriously. I mean, because of climate change, we can't continue to be operating with borders. State lines, national lines, none of it matters. We have too many people on the planet who are going to be displaced because of natural disasters, and it's only getting worse, and we all know it, and we've done no planning, and China has, Russia might have, we don't know. Because we don't know what they're up to. I'm sure Cuba has. They're an island who's been behind, the doors of sedition for, several decades now, and that's finally opened up a little bit. But it's not where it could be for them. My point being that our nation is for sure not prepared. It's doubtful that Canada is. Europe's also in a hot mess. They made steps to improve it with the EU, but I think these are things that are present today that we need Senate and Congress to deal with today. I think that they all need to go. And this is where I'm going to stand behind Senator Hawley and say, yeah, I think the elections are rigged. You're looking at the wrong place. It wasn't the presidential election, because that's the same process that got you elected, Senator Hawley.
Sometimes some of the same people who are legislating today were the same people who were terrified that the world was going to end with the Y2K bug, right? I mean, we really haven't evolved. And having worked in travel industry, for example, the travel industry has to coordinate throughout the entire world for people in Kenya are using the same exact reservation system as people in the United States or people in, any country. And so the same reservation systems, the same technology is driving these travel systems, but they're so old. They're like 50 to 60 years old. They're some of the earliest things that were developed, and they've never really been updated. And because they can't seem to get the entire world to update at the same time. So these are things that we need governments and we need coordinated action on.
Can I jump in for 1 second?
Yeah.
What we need is a true revolution. Am I talking? Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
We have a representative democracy, right? That shit's over. We need a direct democracy. So we have 26 states and one republic, or one territory, has direct democracy, and it just so happens those are the most progressive states. You can get a clipboard today. You guys are talking about, Faye, you're talking about switching your people up and stuff. We already have that process. It's not very fast, but we can recall people at the drop of a hat. If we find them to be incompetent and no longer deserve our support, you get a recall, you get a petition, you get signatures, you say, son bitch, you're out. And then you put up a candidate to challenge them. I think Shahid Buttar should be lacing his boots up right now. I think, what's his name, Charles Booker, lace your boots up, kid. We got to go challenge these people where they live. You can't fight a street fight in courts. You can't fight a court fight on the street. So you bring it where they live, right in their front yard. Pelosi needs to be recalled. All these fuckers, man. I'm just being real. All of them.
Absolutely.
They're in the way. There's 147
I'm with you.
That
Every single one of them needs to go. Every one.
Yep.
There's a way to do it, but once again, that method was instituted so long ago, and it doesn't sit well anymore in the modern lives that we have. It takes too long, even that process, and that's why it keeps not being used.
But the people in power will not change the power structure that put them in power. It's not in their own interest, right? So you got a direct democracy. There's 26 states. You can go get a clipboard, and if you don't live in those states, get a clipboard. Go work with people to get direct democracy in your state. So you can say, if we want 80%, if 80-something% of the country says we should legalize marijuana, then get that shit legalized. It don't need to be a federal law. Every single state agrees. And if you live in some backwards ass state like Mississippi or some shit, you want to have a bunch of fundamentalists telling you what to do, go move your ass to Mississippi. If you don't like it, leave kind of bullshit. All right, well, then let's just make it uninhabitable, unwelcoming for horrible people.
Yep. The only response I have to that is that a representative government gives us the ability to have structured debate on issues. There are rules on how to debate things on the floor of the Senate, blah, 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 for a reason.
But we don't,
and
though.
So taking that away, I think, is a problem. You don't want just direct democracy without the representative, at least for debate. And so there are other systems that work differently where you have direct democracy voting. But when it comes to the process of crafting laws and regulations and making the decisions and having the committee meetings and how exactly do we break down this budget, the business part, that is where your representative comes in. Because truth is, the average Joe isn't equipped to do that. You want people who have the knowledge, experience, training, and talents to be able to sit down and do that without pulling out a gun and shooting each other in the face.
But in practice, we don't have meaningful congressional debates. Meaningful debates aren't happening in Congress. I don't know when the last time that happened. Maybe the 70s, generously the 70s, but perhaps never. I don't really know. Okay, so that's not the defense we should be using. I don't think that defense holds water anymore, and we have to leave it in the past. It's something we used to tell ourselves, and it was maybe never true.
We can fix that by having a required source before you vote on who's in the elections and on what the consequences of certain bills and such are. And also then by... I lost the second point. Oh,
well, I just wasn't finished. I just want to say before... and furthermore... Direct democracy is perfectly capable of a healthy structured debate. There's nothing that precludes that with a direct democracy. We can have hey, every Wednesday you go to the county center and you have your county level debate, or you can go telecommute to the state level. We can build very easy structures that allow for fantastic, productive debate and direct democracy. We do not have to limit ourselves anymore. So I don't think those old arguments hold water anymore.
We have this podcast is a great example that we can have structured debate with people who are knowledgeable in their fields and great communication skills to actually figure out real solutions. We don't need a fucking building to do it even. Look,
we don't need technocrats sucking up our money, being vampires. We don't need technocrats.
They're such bloviating boneheads. It's disgusting. It's they're always stroking their own egos and talking about apple pie and the American way. It's idiot. We didn't put you in for that. Solve the problem or get the fuck out of here.
And they don't even believe the things they're saying. It's a performance. It's just ridiculous on infinite levels. End it. Direct democracy.
We were talking about needing the whole United States or even the whole world to kind of work together, right, on climate change and blah blah blah. Think about it. Small places like Alabama, they can't afford to do the innovation that they need to do, right? We literally need to be able to cross over into the next state over and grab resources, right? It's like having lacerations on your skin. You gotta get something to come in there and help heal it, these divides, right? And then there's structure, there's scar tissue, right? And then finally you can have, something where resources can travel across, right? But we have these giant canyons, as we call them, right, in our country. And there's so much divide. We literally need to start the healing process, and what would that translate to on a political level, right? I think it's all grassroots, right? It's not just I mean, politics might be a part of that solution. It's part of the recipe for healing, right? But it's not the whole recipe. We are part of the recipe. We are the communication gaps. We are maybe we need to teach technology to these areas that need to be recorded, right? Maybe then we could see how sickly they are because we can actually observe the problem at the root source, right?
Have our Congress people and lobbyists and all of them wearing body cams, just like the cops. Because they're supposed to be representing us. We need all their conversations recorded. Who are they talking to? What money are they getting? What is it? And if you don't like that, then get the hell out because you're not working for us.
Well, just during the
turns it into a reality TV show then. Like
it already sort of is, isn't it?
It already is. It already is.
Yeah, but it would be even more so if it were.
No, I don't think so. I think that the people who want accountability, that'll really help. It's already a reality TV show. I can understand if they're discussing like national security and stuff like that, then don't do it because
but the kinds of people who want to be on camera 24/7 in front of people aren't the kinds of people you necessarily want to be running your show.
That's what we have already. That's going to happen anyway.
No, shy people have a lot to contribute too. There are people who are not going to want their practice.
It doesn't matter if you're shy or a corrupt person.
Because
a corrupt person can be very shy.
Recorded 100% of the time.
Let me tell you, a corrupt.
Hold on. Let me ask. I see you two don't agree. Let's ask Boyce something. Have you spoken to the Wolfpack lately, Boyce?
Hell no.
No? Because we have.
Nobody, man. I'm just some guy in Michigan going to work, like I don't have a voice in that level, but
we have. We've had Wolfpack here, so you run your own an interview show, and I can fully imagine you speaking to a lot of very important people. So
not yet.
Anyway, the Wolfpack is
I want to offer a solution to the problem we're all talking about here. Is hybrids of systems are normally the best bridges to build, right? So we got a problem, we got a hybrid that sucker together, stitched together, right? So we want direct democracy. We still need some representation at the Hill, right? So, and like you were saying, Sue, or I'm not Sue, Faye, my bad, is you were saying about, okay, swipe left, I want this, swipe right, I don't, type of thing. Well, I think we should incorporate technology at the local levels to say, okay, here's our app for our county people and for our state people, and then you can say, okay, we're going to the Capitol, we're going to vote on A, B, C, and D, prop this, prop that, whatever. Okay, then you have 24 hours. Let's all make our voices heard. Then your representative can vote according to the democratically chosen, right? It's direct democracy with representation, right? But here's the problem with this whole thing. Doesn't matter without rural broadband, right? So rural broadband needs to be a right in the United States. To get the true democracy needs 100% across the board. 5G, I don't care what scares the shit out of these conspiracy theorists. Take off your bull horns and your stupid mask. Get with the world. I think that's a solution to all these things we just talked about. Is technology, rural broadband access, and then a hybrid of direct democracy versus a hybrid with representative democracy. We can have the best of both worlds. They did it back in 1776, minus the whole slavery thing, and women can't vote and all that shit, right? I'm not saying America's great, but they reinvented the wheel. A bunch of people got together and made a good decision for their own best interest as a country. So we need to stop making excuses for these fuckers. They're not perfect. They weren't. We need a 21st century update on our Bill of Rights and our Constitution to include the internet, to include technology, to include privacy, Ariel. Something you're talking about is a privacy issue. It's not going to happen. As far as like a body cam, it's not going to happen. But not yet. But we need to address it. It all starts with rural broadband and direct a hybrid of some sort.
Rural broadband.
The reason I brought up the Wolfpack is because Wolfpack is focused on trying to get the different states signed up to make amendments to the Constitution, which is what we would have to go into if we actually want to make these types of changes.
We're coming
I hate to
across-
cut everybody off right now,
Yeah.
but this is the
Yeah.
time when we
Oh,
need
the time to go. Man,
say
the time
goodbye
went
to
so
Leslie.
quick today. Also, we just started a little late. But
Yeah.
Leslie,
Well, we
thank you
started
for
late.
joining us. This was really a good
Oh,
show.
it's so fun. Thanks
Yeah,
for
this was
having
great.
me.
Yeah, come back anytime. You know, anytime someone's been on the show, they're welcome to come back. I post the schedule every Thursday. If you see that there's someone who you'd like to talk to coming on, or just want to listen in on our show, or you have something to talk about, just drop in. You don't have to announce yourself or ask ahead of time. Everyone's always welcome. So thank you for coming again, and I hope we'll see you soon.
She should give her Twitter handle and all that sort of thing, right? The outro.
Yeah.
So we're asking
And if someone could add
Leslie,
her BART credits.
Yeah, we are asking Leslie if somebody wants to continue speaking with you or chatting with you offline. How can they do that? Through social media or maybe your website?
Yeah, social media. You can find me at on Twitter at Leslie 2003 1414. At Leslie 2003 1414.
Okay, and that's on Twitter. Okay.
And am I correct in understanding that you would like to kind of be a resource for the YangGang for people doing podcasts and such who might want to talk about mental health or what you testify for UBI?
Sure.
You would.
Yeah, my testimony in particular was about poverty and mental health and the need for UBI. Any of that, I'd be happy to. I love talking about this stuff, and we have moved the window so far. We got a little bit further to go. So yes, I'm happy to do that.
I would really like you to talk to Izzy, one of our regulars who is dealing with poverty and
I
mental
run
health
into
in his
Izzy,
own
yep.
in his own terms and description. That's all. That is very much how he talks and the way he talks about himself.
I've talked to Izzy a number of times.
Okay, great. I mean, I haven't heard your exchange, but maybe sometime you guys will come on here together.
Oh. All right, back to work. Y'all take good care.
Goodbye again. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Great guess. Boys, man, I agree. But I mean, there is a workaround. We should not let the fact that we don't yet have full rural broadband stop us from implementing your sort of bridge gap solution between direct and representative democracy. We can have the app for all the places with broadbands. We can have that whole system set up, and it can also be sort of triaged with the ye old-fashioned call centers, you know? So those things can work together. Faye,
jump in real quick with this though. Like literally the nonprofit that is on its way with actual board members already now that I'm working with a crew member of ours, Joshua. We are trying to get rural broadband out there and technology to these areas that don't have it. That is part of our mission statement, right? That is something important to us. So like, I mean, if you have people who want to help jump on board even, you know, like these are things that do matter to us and we are going to work on. And so like, yeah, it's going to be called the Commonality Project.
You know, just to put a bullet on it, there are workarounds. We can't let things stop. We can't let the fact that we don't have full rural broadband stop us. Like, you know, if there can be a call center where it's like, if you don't have broadband, then you are the only people with access to this call center. Maybe it'll even patch you right through to your representative. Who knows? Maybe you'll get lucky. Special.
Wait, Shale. There's a thing. Remember when I talked about the dogs chasing the cars and not knowing what to do when they get there? There's this guy, Anonymous ID, who posted this, and I really want to read. Imagine
where did he post it?
On these like 4chan sites and stuff.
Okay,
but it's like
I'm familiar.
That stuff. Okay, imagine spending the better part of last 5 years having your brain and ego melted by uninterrupted exposure, flying to Washington in the middle of a pandemic to hear Trump whine about Oprah and Mike Pence at a rally, marching up to Congress on his orders to smash shit and then mill around aimlessly. You go home and hear that Biden won anyway, and all of your favorite Twitter news sources named like Patreon Newsmen of the West with avatars of Roman statues have posted your photo online and are labeling you a gay communist Antifa actor. Then the next day, the God Emperor you pasted into your Warhammer memes puts out a video cucking himself and bending the knee. I'm sorry, those were heinous acts. Please let me tweet again, Jack. You can't leave DC because the airlines have you dubbed a flight risk.
You can't stay because the cops are actively looking for you after one of their own died.
Mm-hmm.
Your roommate at the only hotel that would accept you is a guy named Based Kekistan 1488 who wants to show you his Goblin Slayer torrents. The sun is going down and you're getting cold.
You know, I mean, it can be very. It is a Schadenfreude in making fun of this woman. She's a rich person who went and did this, which is insult to injury, right? But at this point in our culture, and I think like most of our personal development, there's just not a lot of wisdom to be gained from rage. We're just sort of outraged out, and the more interesting conversation is to empathize. Why did she do it? Like, where is the disconnect? Where is she confused? Where is her hurt? What is she sad about being so rich? And
that's cute of you. Good for you.
I mean, it just makes sense, you know?
Yeah. No. The person who died
like,
didn't go in the private jet. She wasn't the rich. I don't think the person that died, I think confusing. The one who took the private jet to get there. But
so this is me making fun of the person that died? That's kind of horrible.
No. You know, I don't know, but no, the person that died was not rich.
No, she was like a young 25-year-old girl or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to get into Mitch McConnell's office. You know, they shot the one trying to get, you know,
I don't know.
What can one say?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully not too much
like
happens.
You wanted to say something a few times, Boyce.
What's that?
Oh yeah, Boyce.
You
have
looked
at
like
it.
you wanted to say something.
I think there's going to be a documentary, quote me, here on the YangGang Roundtable podcast. There's going to be a documentary in like maybe 2 years. It's going to say, this is the study of how to make a domestic terrorist group, period. That's what this is.
And the president was the one. That's so embarrassing for like our country.
Yeah, I would like to invite everybody to come back and podcast again, and including especially Boyce. Boyce, I know you're already busy with so much stuff that you're doing, but you're always welcome here. And can you tell us a little bit about where people can find you and see your great stuff?
Just everything's Mindful Skeptics podcast. And then the Trickle Up, we're making daily news now. Mia's one of the co-hosts that's helped out with that, and several others. And we're going to try and do daily news eventually, but for now we're starting with just Mondays and Thursdays, and every month we're going to add a day to the week and kind of build up our infrastructure to provide daily news to compete with the TYTs, the OANs, and the Hill and stuff like that, and give a more human-centered capitalism version of news.
Well, if you're doing that, especially, I really either have to get back on adding YangGang Roundtable episodes to Trickle Up, or appoint someone who can do that. I really would like to.
I think
maybe you can teach me.
Yeah, I'll teach you. It's not hard.
Also, I've also got I've got Boyce Littlefield for Mindful Skeptics. Is it a podcast on YouTube, or how do you?
It's on YouTube and all the podcast apps. It's everywhere.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate you guys the open invitation, because this is just fun. And I pulled over because I got a patient I'm supposed to go into, but I pulled over so I don't want them staring out their window at me like, what the hell is this guy doing talking to himself? You know.
Thank you for coming on. It's a joy to have you on.
Yeah,
you'll go next.
It's good. It's very, very important that we all connect.
Yeah. And Shale, I appreciate you reaching out to me directly on a DM about this and, inviting me on.
Absolutely. I'm glad I helped.
I was really hoping Izzy was here, so I wanted to apologize to him directly, but
you'll get the chance.
Yeah, for sure. I'll get down. Yeah. But I really stepped in a pile of dung, and I tried to.
No, I know. It's not a big deal.
It's the internet. Misunderstandings happen all the time. It's text. You can't see a person's face. You don't know what's going on in their head, and sometimes signals get crossed. It just happens. I wouldn't beat myself up over it too much.
It's quite possible that a lot of people took it the way that you did.
Yes,
I mean, it
absolutely is.
And we're confused as well. So
I can understand your perspective.
Anyway.
Like, I can understand even the initial angry perspective. I see where that's coming from. It's not baseless. It's not whole cloth out of nothing, and not like it's not crazy. I can understand how you can see that to be like an overreach. It's all about people's individual comfort levels and boundaries. So,
well, and at the same time, we were all, as a nation, very, very raw about what had just transpired. So, I think forgiveness is easy to have in abundance.
Well, the internet incident that just happened on Twitter, it was basically very similar to Leslie's description of how people misunderstand each other, trying to carry groceries for each other. It's sort of the way that you do it does matter. And so that's where we are. Ariel, are you able to give us your closing?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter. It's at Ariels. That's ARIELS, AERIALS. And then also youtube.com/revolutionary thinking. I just had that conversation with Cody Hill personally to think about a way of how we can create a social media that's about like happiness and fun and like good things and like it like makes gamifies doing good in the world is what Leyline is trying to do. So yeah.
Awesome. I'm Faye Koo. I'm in rural East Texas and would love to get rural internet all. I often get to I go to the I have to depend on welfare, and every time I talk to the Medicaid people, they tell me that I am eligible for a Lifeline phone. But the Lifeline phone that they're trying to give me doesn't work in my town, and so it would not be a Lifeline. It would just be one thing that pays somebody else, a corporation, to receive some benefit that they can say they're giving to me, which just doesn't make any sense. So anyway, that's why my Twitter handle is Palestine Math, that I live in Palestine, Texas, and I'd like to go ahead and pass to the other Faye.
My name's Faye Dooney. I'm still out in Alabama. I'm still fighting for basic income pilot here. I've been doing a lot of investigation. I was going to go to City Hall and check it out, but fun fact, I got exposed to Corona, so I've been self-quarantining, and I thought it was not ethical to go and network with as many people as possible when I was put at risk. Not a good thing, right? So anyway, I asked them if they recorded their things. They say no, and I asked why, and they said I can't afford it, or they haven't been able to afford it, but it's on their agenda, right? I'm like, okay, so but it's questions like this and going through the process that allows us to figure out actionable solutions and discuss the things that might have not come to our awareness, right? And so, if you want to help me out on my journey or follow my journey, you could go to Linktree/Tisdoni. There's a dot between the E or before the E's for Linktree. And then, just follow me and see the different adventures I'm going on, because everything's always so different every day, we are building a nonprofit to help with the foundational structure here. And so that's well on its way. So just a little update on that progress. So cool. Come check it out through my Linktree. I got connections to all my different social media platforms there. And let's pass it to Kai.
My name is Kai McCoy. I am broadcasting from the Quaker Meeting House in Kansas City, Missouri. I am at KAIZENKC, KaiZenKC, on Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal.
I love your new dynamic microphone. It's like serious local television vibes.
Great. That's what we want, right?
It's really kind of almost mesmerizing. It kind of is what we want. There's a strange nostalgia to it.
I almost feel like I'm on a mini Wayne World with less kitsch.
Yeah,
it's great.
Well, that's that sounds about right. Normally we would get Mia's closing pretty early on, but she's actually streaming to Twitch for us today. I think it's her very first time streaming our podcast rather than the Sims 4. And so thank you very much for doing that for us today, Mia.
You're very welcome. Would you like my outro too while we're at it?
Yes, please.
Yeah, because normally we want to get you back to your family as soon as possible, but this time you're kind of stuck with us.
That's okay. I could think of worse fates. I'm Mia Songbird, at Mia Songbird on Twitter. I am Mia Songbird on Frey.world. I do Humanity Hangs Tuesdays and Fridays, and if you ever want to come just talk with me, I'm there. You can just approach me and say hi. I love it. Please show up to the Humanity Hangs. Do it. Go to the Humanity Hangs. Also, watch this show again next week and tomorrow. And we have a Sunday show too.
Yeah,
watch all.
Well, I think Shayla's going to tell us a
Watch
little
all
bit
of
about what social streams are coming up this weekend, and we're going to see each other
I
again
think I might
tomorrow.
actually have the information handy. No, all right. It's so tomorrow morning I'm going to do a social stream. I decided from like 11 a.m. to 1. I'm going to do AI Dungeon. Then from 2 to 4 we have an open discussion, I think. Right? And that's our tomorrow. Nothing in the evening tomorrow. And then Sunday, we have an open discussion 2 to 4, and we have Mia 8 to 10. Yeah, 8 to 10 Eastern playing The Sims 4. Oh, and tonight I'm gonna play Quake and Team Fortress 2 and Payday, maybe with Sheridan, because I've always been doing the social hangs. Then like the social hang started as a kind of inclusive like party game event, and it was nice. We had people coming. And then one day I played like Quake and Sheridan played with me and like Don played and was real, like guy stuff. And we're just like, Quake. And it's fun for us, but it's alienating for anybody that's not into like first person shooters. So I decided to make a different thing. So I decided on the schedule tonight, it's the first Friday night firefight. It's going to be 8 to 10 on Friday. This Friday, maybe next Friday. Maybe we'll keep doing it. I don't know. See who shows up. See how much I like playing Quake.
Minecraft. I have my own Minecraft account again.
Do you?
Just saying.
Well, if you want to stream Minecraft on this channel, we can make that work too.
I have one last thing I need to say here.
Yeah.
On my little outro, and that is I am working with Boyce. He mentioned it on his. I need to mention it here too. I'm working with Boyce on the low. I am enjoying being a contributor to the Trickle Up, and it is a great time. And I hope that everybody tunes in and gets their news from us as we kick it into high gear.
I would love to do some of the reporting here that I'm doing with the Alabama thing, but I would need some guidance and hand-holding through that. But I think the investigation on the ground level that I've been doing would be extremely beneficial to troubleshooting some of the things that we have as activists been running into. So just a thought. But anyway, I'll let Shale take it out.
The voice has...
I was going to say, Faye, are you recording your encounters?
I'm recording most of them. I need to get better at recording all of them. I get shy to ask.
Yeah,
like,
it's tough.
Huh?
It's tough to ask people to invade their privacy.
Yeah.
It is. But if there's any way you want to document it, I can help you edit the video together and make little clips if you want. I got time here and there. It doesn't take forever.
That would be helpful. That would be really helpful. Because like I've been talking to Michael Patrick sometimes with some of the editing, but he hasn't. We haven't connected in a while. But it's so crazy because like the Washington Heights podcast is also a different group that I'm like associated with, and I love all our interconnectedness. It's beautiful, guys.
Yeah, those are cool guys. I like to have them on. I'd like to talk to them again, especially since I'm in New York myself, not the city, but I'm like 2 hours away from those guys, not even. So that's nice. Boys, did you gave your outro,
yep.
Right? Okay, it is just me. So my Twitter is ShaelRiley, Shale Riley. That's my name. I have a Patreon where I do music. It's patreon.com/The Grammar Club. I do it with 5 other cool guys, very talented. If you want to check my music out, check that out. Thank you for listening. Friday Night Firefight is the next thing we're doing tonight, 8 to 10. Watch me play first-person shooters, hopefully with Sheridan. Hopefully he'll show up. Otherwise, just watch me. So, goodbye. Thank you again for your time. Be good to each other, and we'll